Every single day of your life, hundreds of people see you, and they all silently agree to pretend that they don't. Not because you're invisible, not because you don't matter. It's because crowded life depends on one strange rule. I'll notice you, just enough to avoid you, but not enough to make you feel watched. And once you notice this rule, you start seeing it everywhere. Walk down a busy street, and something truly weird happens. You're surrounded by faces, but almost nobody really looks at you. People see your coat, your shoes, your hair, your walk. They even see your tired face. But they act like they didn't. A glance is allowed, but a stare is definitely not. You can look for half a second, maybe less. Just enough to say, there's a person there. But if you keep looking too long, then everything changes. Suddenly, it doesn't feel like looking anymore. It feels almost like a threat somehow. And that's the first strange part. Looking isn't neutral. Looking can mean curiosity. It can mean judgment. It can mean interest. Or it can mean danger. A glance is just a glance. But a stare feels like pressure. And every stranger somehow knows the difference. Nobody explains this to you when you're a kid. You just learn it. When you were little, you probably stared at people. Kids tend to do that. They see something unusual and they just look. Then, an adult whispers into their ear, "Do not stare at them." And that's how the rule enters you. Not as a law, not as a lesson, more like a tiny warning that you never forgot. Don't make people feel watched. Don't make people feel exposed. And don't turn someone into a spectacle. Because being noticed can feel good, but being watched feels violating. That's the line. And in public, everyone is walking along that line all the time. On buses, in elevators, at crosswalks, in waiting rooms, even in grocery aisles. Everyone is doing the same quiet performance. I see you, but I'm not going to make it weird. That's the invisible rule. Notice people just enough to share the space, but also look away enough to give them peace. And if someone ever breaks that rule, you can feel it instantly. Like when someone stares at you in a grocery store, or when someone watches you while you're eating, or when someone listens way too obviously to your conversation with someone. Nothing remotely dramatic has happened, but your body knows something feels wrong, because the rule has been broken. And the weirdest part is, this rule is much older than the modern world. For most of human life, strangers weren't normal background noise. A stranger was information. A stranger could be harmless. A stranger could be useful. Or a stranger could be dangerous. And if someone watched you closely, there was probably a reason. Maybe you were new. Maybe you did something wrong. Or maybe someone was deciding whether to trust you or not. In a small group, attention had real weight. Being seen could mean you were included. Being stared at could mean you were being judged. Being ignored can mean you were safe. Or it can mean you were being pushed out. That's the uncomfortable part. Human beings are not just afraid of physical danger. We're also afraid of social danger. Things like shame, exclusion, embarrassment, being laughed at, being unwanted, or even being the person everyone suddenly notices. And you don't need to live in an ancient camp to feel how uncomfortable that can be. You feel it when you trip in public. You feel it when a room goes quiet as you walk in. You feel it when someone looks at you a little too long, and you don't really know why. Your brain starts asking old questions like, am I safe? Am I being judged? Did I do something wrong? Do I belong here? That's why a stare can feel bigger than it should. It isn't just eyes, it's uncertainty. And humans hate uncertainty, especially when it's coming from another person's face. Now here's the real problem today. The old brain didn't disappear. We just dropped it into a world full of strangers. A city can put more unfamiliar faces in front of you in one afternoon than a small group of people might have normally seen in a lifetime. The city didn't remove the old fear. It multiplied the number of eyes that could be watching. So the brain had to adapt. Not by becoming fearless, but by making a deal. We can be close without being involved. We can share space without demanding attention. We can notice each other without turning every glance into a social event. That's what public life depends on. Not friendliness and not coldness. A controlled amount of attention. Too little attention and people feel invisible. Too much attention and people feel trapped. That's the weird balance. We want to be seen, but we don't want to be inspected. We want to matter, but we don't want to become a spectacle. And being ignored is how strangers manage that balance. You see it in elevators. Everyone faces the door like the floor numbers are the most interesting thing they've ever seen. Nobody wants to stare at the person 6 inches away, because that would be literally insane. You see it on buses. People sit beside each other like statues. Someone coughs, and everyone hears it. Nobody really reacts too much. You see it in restaurants. The couple at the next table starts arguing. Everyone nearby hears every word. But suddenly, those menus become must-read material. You even see it in public washrooms, where eye contact basically disappears from human civilization. Everyone knows, but no one ever explains the reason. You see it on sidewalks. Two people accidentally step the same way, then the other way, then the same way again. Both people smile, a tiny embarrassed smile, because for 1 second, the invisible rule became visible. That's what awkwardness is. It's the sound a social rule makes when it bumps into another person. And phones made this even stranger. Now, if you don't know where to look, you look down. Phones became portable eye contact shields. Not because people are rude, sometimes because they need somewhere safe to put their eyes. That sounds ridiculous. But you've done it. I've done it. We've all done it. Because the question in public is always the same. Where should I put my attention so nobody thinks I want something from them? But here's the really weird part. You might hate feeling ignored. You might hate walking through a crowd and feeling like nobody cares. But you'd hate it even more if everyone actually looked at you. Imagine walking down the street and every single stranger turns their head. Every face studies you. Every eye follows you. Every person notices your clothes, your expression, your body, your mood. That wouldn't feel like connection. It would feel like a violation or like complete exposure. So maybe the crowd isn't always erasing you. Maybe it's giving you cover. Maybe the stranger who looks away isn't saying, you don't matter. Maybe they're saying, your life is none of my business. And while that can be lonely, it can also be kind, because sometimes privacy looks exactly like indifference. You aren't invisible, you're being granted privacy. That's the reversal. That's the invisible rule hiding in plain sight. So the next time strangers walk past you and pretend not to see you, try noticing what they're actually doing. They're giving you room to have a bad day. They're giving you room to look tired, to wear something strange, to cry quietly, to spill coffee and recover without becoming entertainment, to become awkward, to be private, to exist without performing. Because being seen can be powerful, but being watched can be heavy. And modern life is full of people quietly carrying that weight for each other. Not perfectly, not always kindly, not in every place, but often enough that crowded life doesn't turn into constant judgment. Often enough that millions of strangers can pass each other every single day without every sidewalk becoming a stage. That's the hidden trade. Look enough to avoid harm, look away enough to give peace. And that's why this rule feels so strange, because it solves one human fear by creating another. Being ignored can make you feel lonely, but being watched can make you feel trapped and uncomfortable. So we live in the narrow space between them, between wanting to be seen and needing to be left alone. That's the small agreement strangers make without saying a word. I see you, I know you're there, but I won't stare long enough to make you feel exposed. Most people see you. They just choose not to make you feel watched.